ஏதன் கண்ணே நிலையாகி இருந்திடுமே உலகமெல்லாம் எதனதெல்லாம் எதனின்று அனைத்துலகும் எழுமோ மற்றிவையாவும் எதன் பொருட்டா எதனாலே வையமெல்லாம் எழுதிடுமே எல்லாமும் எதுவே ஆகும். அதுதானே உளபொருளாம் சத்தியமாம் அச்சொருபம் அகத்தில் வைப்பார். அதுவே முக்கிய இதயம் அதன் கண்ணிவ் அகிலமுமே அமர்ந்திருக்கும். அது வாடி எப்பொருட்கும் எல்லா செல்வங்கட்கும் அதுவே இல்லம். அதனாலே அனைத்துயிர்க்கும் அறிவதுவே இதயமென அறையலாகும். சிதையா நிற்கும் கற்போல் சடவுடலின் அவயத்தோர் சிறு கூறன்றார். Namo Ramana. With Bhagavan's immense grace, we have come up to verse number 23 in the Upasana Prakaranam. In the Upasana Prakaranam, we have been given the Upadesham of Bhagavan selected from various sources to show the essence of all these have been captured in Bhagavan's original teachings, and in what beautiful light Bhagavan has covered this essence of scriptures. We are able to revel in that greatness of Bhagavan's teachings as we are exposed to these wonderful verses from the various scriptures. This is Aduve Mukkiya Idayam Adan Kanniv Agilamume Amardirukkum. Aduvadi Epporutkum Ella Chelvangatkum Aduve Illam. அதனாலே அனைத்துயிர்க்கும் அறிவதுவே இதயமென அறையலாகும். சிதையா நிற்கும் கற்போல் ஜடவுடலின் அவயத்தோர் சிறுகூர் என்றார். In the previous verse, Bhagavan had selected those verses and given from the discussion between Rama and Vasishtha Muni, where the two different kinds of hearts have been mentioned, Kollattakkadum, Tallattakkadum. And Vasishtha Muni had said the physical organ that pumps blood, that is set within the physical body as a part, is to be set aside as not worthy of investigation, but that the heart, which is the one consciousness, which is worthy of selection and investigation, has been given to us in verses 21 and 22 from Yoga Vasishtam. The selection is from Yoga Vasishtam, and it continues where the nature of the Hridayam to be investigated in is further delineated by Vasishtha Muni for our sake, and Bhagavan selects those verses for us. Why is the heart, the spiritual heart, to be investigated? We already saw that though the Mangala Shlokam of Ulladu Narpadu began with Hridayam, there was not much discussion of Hridayam in the work, but only the self and how the ego is to be taken to the source, the self. And Bhagavan has excellently used these verses to give the connection, how Bhagavan's teaching is the essence of Hridaya Vidya taught in Chandogya Upanishad and commented very deeply by Adi Shankara as Dahara Vidya. Dahara Vidya, Hridaya Vidya, and Bhagavan is praised as the teacher of Hridaya Vidya, as the teacher of Bhuma Vidya Visharadaya Namaha. Bhuma Vidya is a chapter 5, or it's chapter 7 of Chandogya Upanishad, and this Hridaya Vidya or Dahara Vidya is in chapter 8 of Chandogya Upanishad. When we go through those, we understand how the vastness of everything, the vastness of the universe is captured by Bhagavan through the simple practice but profound practice of letting go of thought and holding the high. An interesting fact that emerges from this study of how Bhagavan has introduced these verses, which connects his teachings to the scriptures or connects the scriptural teachings to his teachings. Whichever way we want, we can take it. We find how the wholeness of the Bhuma Vidya is captured by Bhagavan in self-inquiry. And interestingly, Adi Shankara, while commenting on the Dahara Vidya, as I said, appears after the Bhuma Vidya in Chandogya Upanishad. And Adi Shankara in his commentary interestingly says, this Dahara Vidya is for those dull-witted people who cannot understand the Bhuma Vidya. It is for those dull-witted people who cannot understand the Bhuma Vidya is the reference by Adi Shankara, and initially it shocks you. The reference shocks the reader. But the beauty is Bhagavan has made such a sadhana, the Bhuma Vidya, which was available only for a select few, only for those who could expand their consciousness to cover the cosmic consciousness of Ishvara. Those were the ones who could grasp Bhuma Vidya and abide steadily in the Bhuma, where na anyat shrunoti, na anyat pashyati, where no other is seen, no other is heard, is covered. But Shankara himself indirectly admits that Hridaya Vidya is the opening up of Bhuma Vidya for everyone. The Hardha Vidya, which is actually to go within oneself, not to meditate on the expansion of the whole universal nature of God, but to go within oneself. He says it is for those who are incapable of expanding their consciousness to the Bhuma. And that is the reference made by the commentator also on the Shankara Bhashya, that Shankara refers like this. But seen from another angle, because everything has two angles in this world or more, not less. Therefore, seen from the other side, we are able to appreciate the greatness of Bhagavan in having brought the Bhuma Vidya into our fold. Otherwise, where is hope for me? If Bhagavan had not brought Bhuma Vidya into the ambit of small creatures, useless people, also Where is the hope? Where was I? What could I have comprehended? I could not have comprehended anything. But Bhagavan, by making us let go of one thought after another, he takes us through the individual consciousness to the cosmic consciousness as revealed by him in Ulladu Narpadu, where he takes us beyond dualities, beyond triads, beyond first person, second person, third person, beyond the past, present, future, beyond space and time itself, beyond fate and free will, beyond individual and God. And that is how he takes from simple practice of letting go of thought to the Bhuma Vidya. But the Hridaya Vidya or the Atma Vidya or the Dahara Vidya is simple and available to every one of us. All we have to do is begin wherever we are, whatever kind of thoughts, as Dilipji would say, may appear to us good, bad, or intermediate, doesn't matter. Just start letting go of that one by one, and the source will start presenting the Bhuma to us automatically for us to transcend. But as usual, I have gone ahead of the verse. So let us go back to the verse and reflect on it. Adive Mukhya Idayam. So Bhagavan through Yoga Vasishtam is telling us that whatever you might have known about the physical heart, even psychology says the physical heart is the seat for emotions and all that. And that is a question asked of Bhagavan, that the heart is said to be seat of negative emotions. How can this Hridayam be the seat of negative emotions? And Bhagavan, quite unsurprisingly, says, when Hridayam, the spiritual heart, is the seat of everything, it is indeed the seat of both positive and the negative. So everything is contained in it, says Bhagavan. So the spiritual heart is the Adve Mukhya Hridayam. In this beginning of this verse, our attention is now totally shifted from the heart, the physical heart which pumps blood, to the spiritual heart which is the one consciousness, Adve Mukhya Hridayam. Kanakammal says this gives you focus from the body to the spirit. Adve Mukhya Hridayam, Adan Kan Iv Akilamume Amardirukkum. This whole universe is present in the spiritual heart, in the consciousness. Now, it is said that the whole world and consciousness, the spiritual heart is the seat. Adan Kan Iv Akilamume Amardirukkum is the seat of everything and the consciousness. Now, in one of the talks, Bhagavan is asked about how is it said that God is said to reside in the Dahara Akasha. The Dahara Akasha is nothing but within the spiritual heart, there is this space beyond thoughts that is called as Dahara Akasha. And in the talk 69, I think, we have discussed that in the chat. There, Bhagavan is asked, it is said that God is said to reside in the Dahara Akasha. How? And Bhagavan responds, because you are identified with a body and you feel you reside inside a body, for that purpose, the omnipresent God is said to reside inside the Dahara Akasha. In fact, being omnipresent, everything is present in him. It is not that he is bound and present within something. Everything is present within God. That is the meaning of omnipresence. In fact, nothing is present in him other than him. That is omnipresence. Therefore, initially the Dahara Akasha is said to be the seat of God. Then God consumes Dahara Akasha consumes God. There is only one. There is only the consciousness. Similarly is the case with the heart. The heart is initially said to be the seat of consciousness. the seat of everything. Then finally, everything and the seat are consumed into the consciousness. So what is the spiritual heart? Spiritual heart is clearly only the one consciousness beyond all thought. So adan kan iv agilamume amarndirukkum. In that one consciousness, everything is present. Now this is a concept. If we can understand this, how Bhagavan has handed over everything to us, if we go to the Dahara Akasha, can be understood. Now, when we read the Tiruvachakam, we find that it is said that the mantra, the Om Namah Shivaya, as a Shabda, is the Karana when it is just going on automatically. It is the Karana Shabda for everything. The Om Namah Shivaya going on automatically is the Karana Shabda. The thoughts are the Sukshma Swarupa of that Karana Shabda. And the whole world and all creations are only Stula Rupa of that Karana Shabda. And by having the Karana Shabda and identifying with it, one is literally having all the Stula and all the Sukshma Swarupas in oneself. Now that is what we find in Tiruvachakam. That when we understand that and when we look at the Dahara Akasha and this Purana indicated by Bhagavan, Bhagavan is saying, you hold this Purana, then the satisfaction of having gone to each object and obtained them, and still you will be left unsatisfied until you come to the heart. All that journeys are completed once you come to the Dahara Akasha, once you come to the self, once you come to the heart. So it is the simultaneous fulfillment of all desires. This is what is mentioned in the Dahara Vidya in Chandogya Upanishad. It is all the Satyakamas and Satyak Sankalpas are simultaneously fulfilled when one resides in the Dahara Akasha. So, Adan Kandiv Agilamume Amarndirukkum. Everything is residing in the heart. Aduvadi Eppurutkum. In the previous verse also, we had seen Aduvadi Eppurutkum means that is the mirror for all objects. Aduvadi Eppurutkum means that is the mirror for all objects. This reference we had seen from the Dakshinamurti Stotram, that the reference here is to show that all the objects are mere images, mere shadows, and the mirror alone is the reality. And we had seen the four qualities of the mirror and the shadows, how the mirror is the adhisthana and etc. So that is what is referred again here, that Aduvadi Eppurutkum, that the Hridayam is the mirror for all these objects. Ella Chelvangatkum Aduve Illam. All the wealth that one can think of, all the wealth and health that one can think of, the heart is the real residence. This is something we have to understand very clearly. Adu Vadi Eppurutkum Ella Chelvangatkum Aduve Illam. Whatever wealth one can think of as objective wealth is not present in deep sleep. We have seen earlier also how Bhagavan uses this deep sleep so often in the talks. Whenever someone would ask about some trouble or some knowledge or some worry about next birth or some deity to be followed, many a time Bhagavan would say, were these present in your deep sleep? Were these present when you were asleep? You were present, but were any of these present? Now we saw in the earlier verses that this deep sleep is the tapoloka, is the neti loka of the of the rishis and munis, where they do consciously the neti neti, Bhagavan has taken to that tapoloka everyone who has come in front of them. In the silence, if they could quieten, if their ego should go in and they would be bereft of the doubts they came with, they are in that tapoloka. They are in the neti neti loka of the rishis, which will be attained after great tapas. In Bhagavan's Sannidhi, it used to happen in a trice. If even then they had some doubts, with his words, with his kind words, with his kind look, Bhagavan would quieten that ego and take them to the tapoloka. And for our sake, these have been recorded in various works of the devotees who were present there. And Bhagavan would ask, was this present in deep sleep? When you were asleep, was this present? You were present. You are the selvam. You are the home for all the wealth. Those objects are not the wealth. You are the wealth, is what Bhagavan would say. This wealth, this great knowledge, a scientist goes to sleep and the popular theory he has developed for the universe is gone in a trice. It is not present. So all the scientific knowledge, all the humanitarian based knowledge, all knowledge that you can have, all spiritual knowledge is all now contained in the essence of the tapoloka, of the neti neti, where one alone is present, but no object is present. And Bhagavan would take us there, and that is why the Hridayam, which is the source of everything, is actually the source of all wealth. Aduve ella chelvam katkum, aduve illam. This is what one should clearly understand. When we are going into the heart, for whom is this thought? Who am I? When we are doing neti for that one thought and going to, when we are doing neti itself, we are participating in the tapoloka. And when we hold the who am I, we are participating in the Hridaya Vidya, in the Dahara Vidya of going into the space, in the small hole contained in the heart, which is closed for the ignorant ones. Again and again, Bhagavan makes us put light on that particular place so that that hole opens up once and for all, and one is able to be in that, in the self as one's own nature. Aduve ella chelvangatkum, aduve illam. Whatever we feel as knowledge, as wealth, the heart, the spiritual heart is the illam. So when we are doing Atma Vicharam, Bhagavan is taking us to that wealth which is imperishable, which can never be taken away from us, which is definitely not lost within 24 hours when we go off into deep sleep. It cannot be taken away from us. That is the wealth that the greatness of Yoga Vasishtam is bringing to us, and Bhagavan is translating for us. Aduve ella chelvangatkum aduve illam. Not only the wealth we find when we are practicing Atma Vicharam, we find it is the Sanjeevini. The heart is the real healer of spirit. The doctors can heal some of the organs for some of the times. When we listen to frank expositions from many speakers from the profession itself, we find that they themselves realize that they cannot guarantee or they cannot endlessly support the physical existence of anyone. Their support is limited. But the spirit, when it goes to the Hridayam, one can feel that healing, that completeness, that which is indestructible, that which cannot be touched by anything. As Bhagavan calls in his enlightenment experience, that is the deathless spirit. I found that I am the deathless spirit. I stiffened the body. What is it that dies in me? I asked. So the physical body is definitely subject to death. It will be carried away and burnt in the fire. So let me stiffen it. The breath has movement up and down, in and out. So it is having birth and death. Let me hold it. And Bhagavan says, when he held his breath, all thoughts got stilled. All thoughts are perishable. whatever subtle, whatever gross thoughts it may be, it is all perishable. It is having beginning and death. Therefore, all the thoughts, including the need to say I, completely stilled itself, says Bhagavan. When all these perishable things were completely stilled, the Hridayam started functioning, revealing itself as the deathless spirit, as that which cannot be touched by perishability, as I. It was shining, says Bhagavan. And from that moment on, like the fundamental Shruti note in music, irrespective of whether the perishable body was functioning in perishable activities of speaking, writing, cooking, or anything, the imperishable, deathless spirit was continuing and revealing itself in self-luminous nature as I. That was realized. Till then, I had no intention or knowledge about this self. And from that moment on, I realized what it is to live in this self, he says. Bhagavan says, what it is to abide in this self, what it is to live in this self, to clearly realize that one is the deathless spirit and not that which is subject to any mortality. That is what Agila Selvangatkum Aduve Illam. What can be more wealth than the deathless spirit, that which cannot be touched by Yama himself, that which cannot be touched by time or space. It is clearly beyond, and that is why it is said that the heart is the home for all wealth, all kinds of, it is the abode for all kinds of wealth. Aduve Mukkiya Yedayam, Adan Kandiv Akilamume Amarnirukkum, Adu Vadi Epurutkum, that is the mirror for everything. Ella Chalvangatkum Aduve Illam, for all wealth. And from the personal experience of oneself who goes into self-inquiry, it is the ultimate healer. The spirit stands absolutely healed. When you go to the deathless spirit of the self, irrespective of what hurt has been received, when we come out, Bhagavan says it is always injury. In our harshness, in our coarseness, we may take pleasure out of it. But the moment the mind is outward turned, it is subject to injury, says Bhagavan. And at some point, despite our hardness, we really get injured. We really feel the pain. At least at that time, when we start doing the stillness, Summayre. When we keep still, the actual healing from the Sanjeevani, from the deathless spirit, one can experience, and one will never let go of that. That this healing from the deathless spirit is the real healing. Because the jiva feels it is subject to death, it is subject to injury, it is subject to misery, it is subject to sorrow, because it is coming and playing in the perishable area. But the moment it learns the heart vidya, the hridaya vidya of going into the deathless spirit, it really understands this is the real doctor, this is the bhavaroga bishag, this is the real healer. And that complete healing from pain, from the misery, is really felt when one does Atma Vicharam or directly stills the eye, and one is irretrievably taken to the heart. There is no way, that is why it is called as the Parandhama, from which there is no return. It is infinite, so there is no return. It is the ultimate healer, there is no return. It is the place and residence of all kinds of imperishable wealth. Therefore, there is no return. Why will one return from there? One will reside there, and in fact, there is nothing else that exists for such a one. Therefore, it becomes the abode of one's existence. Aduve Aduvadi Eppurutkum. It is the mirror for everything. Aduve Ella Chelvangatkum Aduve Illam. Adanale Anaitu Irkum Arivaduve Idayamana Ariyalahum. Therefore, this imperishable heart, this imperishable consciousness, the deathless spirit, the arivu, the consciousness which is beyond birth and death, is called as heart of all being. Why this reference to all being? He is not the Yoga Vasishtam is not saying this is only for the followers of Hinduism or some other community. It is not saying that this is the Hridayam for this group of people or that group of people. அதுவே அதனாலே அனைத்துயிர்க்கும் அறிவதுவே இதயம் என அறையலாகும். It is said to be the heart of all beings. Whatever one may be identified with, this one consciousness is the heart. Why is it so essential that any spiritual teaching has to have this universality, has to cover everything in its umbrella? In its one umbrella, everything has to be covered. Not a bit is left out. Not a single element or being is left out of its ambit. This Hridayam, it is the Hridayam for all beings. Why is it so important? Because that is when the abidance is complete. Even if a small bit is left out of its ambit, of its scope, then where can one abide? There is something outside it, and whatever has something outside it is limited, and it will not give satisfaction, it will not give abundance. There will be disturbance of going out and coming in. It will not be the wholeness. This beauty that our tapas, our investigation has to at one point include the bhuma, include everything, including the na anyat pashyati, is covered by Bhagavan so beautifully again and again when he says, whenever somebody asks, how are we going to help those people? How are we going to communicate all this to others? Bhagavan would say, there are no others. There are no others is the essence of Bhuma Vidya. Again and again, in such simple words, Bhagavan gives us what Shankara calls as so complex and available to only a few. Bhagavan opens it up for everyone through the Hridaya Vidya and through his words again and again. But coming back to why any spiritual teachings have to necessarily cover the Bhuma, have to necessarily cover the whole, we find in the simple story of the reference of the mustard seed. We go to it once again, where a lady goes to Buddha, and she is already depicted in that story as a great tapasvi, as a lady of great tapas. Because how she gets married to a person is that the person to whom she is married, her father is a very great gold merchant in that area, and he incurs the wrath of a sage. He incurs the wrath of a sage by inadvertence, and that sage curses him, let all your wealth become ashes. So you can imagine the whole of his showroom having all kinds of gold articles suddenly becoming completely full of ashes. And that gentleman immediately prays to the compassionate sage, this is the only thing I have and it has all become ashes and it was totally inadvertent. Please help me get my wealth back. And the sage says, okay, I understand. What you do, you gather all this from all these shells, you gather the dust, put those ashes into a blanket, go to the market, keep it in the open street and sell that this is gold. And when somebody sees that as gold and they touch it, then all your cupboards will be full of your articles again. And he does that from morning till evening, and in the evening this lady walks and she asks, why sir, why are you keeping such precious golden articles in the platform and selling them? What you can see golden articles, can you kindly touch? She touches and it all becomes gold. That is the incident that reveals her tapas already. She gets, and that gentleman gets her married, though she is apparently very poor, married to his son, and they have a child. And that child passes away at a very young age, very small age. And she understands that if she approaches Buddha, he may revive the child. And she takes the child to Buddha and places the child before him. And Buddha says, I will surely revive him. Only one thing, you go to that house, in that village in front of us, there are 40 houses. Go to one house where they have not experienced the sorrow of death and get me a handful of mustard seeds from that house. The moment you bring those mustard seeds to me, I will revive your child. She immediately, what? Only that? And she rushes. And in each of the houses, those days were of joint families. So they have seen umpteen number of deaths, child, middle-aged, old ones. So in each house, they are ready to give the mustard seed. But the moment she asks, have you seen the sorrow? What? Have we seen? Each house is filled with experience of that. And by the third house or fourth house, she realizes, what a fool I have been. How selfish I have been. That which is a common problem to the all living beings, I want to escape somehow for myself. Should I not investigate what is this common problem afflicting all living beings? This is what Buddha wants me to do. So she immediately tells Buddha, I am going to do the Antim Samaskara for my child, but I want to learn the truth about and meditate on this common illness of Bhavaroga faced by all living beings. Now, when such a tapas is done, when such a universality is brought into tapas, the tapas gains in strength. The tapas is no more about one silly little problems. How am I going? That energy is of different nature. When the tapas is of the problem afflicting all living beings, the energy that is available for the answers is of a total different nature. All living beings stand with you. All living beings are there behind your tapas. You are one with all of them. Now, that is Bhuma Vidya. That is brought automatically by Bhagavan. That is the necessity why the heart has to contain, has to cover everything. This is the Hridayam for everyone, not this group, that group, not living beings and non-living beings. Everything, living, non-living, is a very comfortable categorization we make for ourselves. Everything is Chaitanyam. Everything is full of life. But that will come when you at least take the stand on behalf of all living beings. That is how the great ones bring the coverage for everything. And how Bhagavan brings that coverage is, whenever he teaches self-inquiry and whenever somebody asks about the other, what to do to the other, there is no other. In Tamil, there is a statement, Udukkai ilandavan kai pole aange idukkan kalaivadam nattu. Will the hand that covers for the slipping dress, will it say, I am covering this or doing that? It won't even know. I am helping another is not at all help. The feeling that there is another is not at all right, says Bhagavan. There is only one, and one should expand one's consciousness by going in to include everyone, to include everything, to include the Bhuma, till there is no other. The Atma Vidya itself is Bhuma Vidya. Bhuma Vidya Visharadaya Namaha. Hridaya Vidya, Atma Vidya, Bhuma Vidya. That the heart covers everything without leaving a single thing outside. There is no outside or inside, as we saw in the earlier verse. The concepts of outside and inside are completely annihilated in the one consciousness. And that is what is covered in this line. Adanale anaithuyirkum arivaduve idayamena arayalahum. So we see these three phrases once again. Aduve mukkiya idayam, adan kanniv akilamume amardirukkum, aduvadi epporutkum. That is the mirror for everything. Ella chalvankatkum aduve illam. For all kinds of wealth and health, that is the abode. Adanale, therefore, anaithuyirkum, for all living beings, அறிவதுவே. This is the consciousness. இதயம் என அறையலாகும் சிதையா நிற்கும் கற்போல் ஜடவுடலின் அவயவத்தோர் சிறு கூறன்றால். சிதையா நிற்கும், the perishable body and the body which is insentient, in that one part which is also perishable and which is also insentient, cannot be the heart that is referred to here. Therefore, this arivu, the imperishable, the deathless spirit which Bhagavan realized in his enlightening experience, cannot be the physical heart which he burnt in the first step itself. When he stiffened the physical body, as though rigor mortis has it, that step itself he has stopped investigating into the physical heart. It has started investigating into the spiritual heart. What is the source of the breath? What is the source of the mind? What is the source of the eye? It is the deathless spirit. It is not the perishable. Now, why is the physical heart which is pumping blood called insentient? It is so clear that unless consciousness is self-aware, it cannot be called sentient in the Vedantic terminology, in Bhagavan's teachings. In Bhagavan's teachings, only that is sentient which is aware of itself, which is self-luminous, which is self-protecting or self-sustaining in nature, not dependent on anything else for existence. It is self-contained, self-luminous, self-correcting, and independent of any other. Therefore, it is not that perishable being, the body or the physical heart that is contained in it. It is not only perishable, it is also to be treated as insentient. Though the body seems to see so many things, seems to touch so many things, the heart seems to pump so much blood throughout the organs, carry so much oxygen throughout the organs, but still it is to be called insentient. What is the only sentience that is there? The arivu, the hridayam, the source of the eye, is the only sentient being which one has to seek, find and abide in. That is the teaching that Bhagavan gives by selecting this verse for us. In the next verse, we come to Atmavicharam. Adanalu arivu mayamam சுத்த இதயத்தை அகத்தை சேர்க்கும் சாதனையால் வாதனைகளோடு வாயு ஒடுக்கமுமே சாரும் தானே. 24th, that Atmavicharam practice with Bhagavan's grace we will take up in the next week. We go into the practice of Atmavicharam for the next 10 minutes. Revathima, you will be able to set time for us? Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramana. Namo Ramana. I request Dr. Sharda to give us the remarks. Namo Ramana ka.
Namo Ramana, sir. Prostrations to Bhagavan, shining as that self in all beings, which has been extolled so beautifully today while meditating on Bhagavan's verse in Anubandham. And what further for us to say or do except to enjoy the bliss of that heart which is ever full of love, which is reaching out to us in so many ways. Bhagavan says that it is there, it is all pervading. That means whoever speaks to us, whoever interacts with us, whatever are the things which we see, they are all actually placed there in our lives by Bhagavan to reveal the heart to us. Because Bhagavan says the heart is all pervading. He says it in Ashtakam, in 2 verses, what he has said in this verse. Manihalir Saradena Uir Torum Nana Madan Torum Maruvinai Nidan. You are there in all the beings, he says. Of course, he says Ashtamurti Deva Pujanam. And in the latter verse of Ashtakam, Nandakumarji was sharing with me sweetly, he says, he has, by saying that there is no rest even for the river or the water until it comes back to the sea, he has included the Panchabhutas in this journey. And of course, he has talked about the birds as an instance of the living beings, that they cannot rest until they come back, no matter where they search, where they fly, what they do. And then I was reminded of two stories when Nandakumarji was dwelling very beautifully on the availability of the heart within us. I just remembered one instance in Mahabharatam. It is not in the Vyasa Bharatam, Kameshwar says, but in another Bharatam, I don't remember. When before Krishna goes to negotiate with Duryodhana, he speaks to all the Pancha Pandavas and Draupadi as to whether he has to stop the war or whether what is their feel. He goes, and Sahadeva is the one who says, before he comes to Draupadi among the 5 brothers, all the 4 say, try and stop the war. And he admonishes them for that. Then when he comes to Sahadeva says, somehow or the other ensure there is war. And then Krishna says, is that what you want, Sahadeva? And Sahadeva says, that is what you want, Krishna. So the only way to stop the war is if we tie you up. If we make you immobile, the war can be stopped. And Krishna says, is that so? And how will you make me immobile? And it is said that Sahadeva immediately sits down in dhyana and holds Krishna, which means the self, in the heart. And then Krishna says, after some time, Sahadeva, when he allows the mind to move, Krishna says, you are right, Sahadeva, you have held me captive. So, it is possible, says Bhagavan, that vast, that magnificent, that illimitable achala, that vastu can be held through parival ulamuruha nalam paranardidu. Guhayardu. If one seeks in that heart cave with the melting heart, melting with love, says Bhagavan, then it will be revealed, says Bhagavan. And that is the great love, because that heart is love. That is why there is, as Nandakumarji said, what does one seek except deathlessness? If one looks another way, what does one seek except love? Because everyone is longing for something. What is everyone longing for? They are longing for love. For a little bit of, people are ready to do all kinds of stupid things for a little bit of attention. So that is, what is it? Because they mistake it for love. But what is the real love? We learn in that incident where there was that woman from the north who had estranged herself from her family, got married to a young man of her liking and saw him being killed before her eyes, eaten up by a shark, and she was so embittered and she went from place to place because intellectually being very strong, destroying every word which asserted the presence of God, and ultimately she came to Bhagavan and was taken there by the young Kitty Osborne to Bhagavan's presence, and Kitty says she could feel the negativity emanating from her. It was difficult to hold her hand and take her to Bhagavan's presence. And in Ganeshan's reporting, he says, Kitty was almost afraid that her negativity would swallow Bhagavan. She was afraid to take her to Bhagavan. But then in the afternoon, she found that when she came back, there was a total transformation, there was absolute peace. And gradually, after some time, when the subject came up, her mother didn't force her to speak. The same peacefulness of Bhagavan was there in the Osborne's house also, though. But Kitty says she was very anxious to know. So she kept hanging around until the secret was revealed, and that lady says Bhagavan just looked at her. And she felt enveloped in infinite love, and she knew for the first time what love really meant. And she recognized that what she had taken to be love was pure selfishness. That's what he said very, very beautifully today in the Kisa Gautami episode, that she recognized that her love had been selfishness. How beautiful it was. What a beautiful revelation that was today. Not that we have not heard this episode before, but I think this revelation came today, that it is the only unselfish thing is to get back to the self, the only unselfish deed, and that is the only source of immortality, it is the only source of deathlessness. Again, he used, Nandakumarji very naturally uses the terminology of Bhagavan, of course, because he is soaked in that. And he said we are under that one umbrella. So it reminded me of the other verse in Ashtakam. Ulladu Vishurin, if you get back, Oru Kudai Nidar Kove, you become the emperor under one umbrella. In Raham Puram, Iravinai, Iral Janmam, Inbu, Tunbu, Irul Voli, Yenum Kanavu. So this dream of inside, outside, the other and I, this dream of non-existence and existence, death and birth, Iral Janmam, Inbu, Tunbu, this dream of pleasures and plains and darkness and light, all are wiped out. This whole dream, this dream which is appearing on the mirror of the self, this dream is wiped out, says Bhagavan, when one enters into the heart. Ulladu Vishurin, when one enters into the heart, or Kudai Nidar Kove, and that is the magnificence of the heart. That's what, as he pointed out today, Bhagavan has repeatedly said that it is all encompassing and out of concession for us. He has said it is there in all jivas, in all beings. Because for Bhagavan there is no all at all, there is no multiplicity, there is no division, there is no other, as he clearly says. But for our sake, to make us understand that nothing is outside of it, that everything, if there is an everything, that everything is contained in it, he has given us this Harda Vidya, the Harda Vidya Prakashakaya Namaha, as he is called by Vishwaratha Swami, as the entry point to the Bhuma Vidya in all his grace, to fulfill his purpose of establishing every being in that state. Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya.
Namo Ramnaka. Thank you.
Namo Ramnasa.